Welcome to Congress Conference Centre and to the first of a kind round 2 competition call. I just want to say a few words and then we'll get straight on with the first speaker. Agenda-wise, I think there was some copies outside, but basically before the break we will talk about the scope and the application. After the break there'll be some opportunities talking to some of the industry people, and following that do some pitches going up to lunch. The afternoon is your time to talk to the people who have spoken, to get to understand the competition and talk to the people who are offering assets for the competition. So make the most of that time. Just a couple of words. Fire exits, there's no fire drill expected today, so if it does go off, it's the real thing. Exits, here, down the stairs the way you came in, not the lift, and meet outside. Toilets are through, turn left just after the lift, if you haven't found them already, and refreshments are all across the way. I don't want to say any more, apart from the fact I should have introduced myself, which is Ian Stock from Knowledge Transfer Network, who's responsible for rail and marine sectors. I'd just first of all like to warmly welcome Phil West from the DFT, who's going to open this conference today. So thank you very much indeed. Phil, over to you.
Thank you, Ian, and you've reminded me that I need to do what I always forget to do, which is introduce myself. So I'm Phil West. I've been a civil servant for 30 years now. I started off in a job that dealt with UFO sightings, and then it was always on the way up until I got to rail, and it was even better. So I've worked in railways and in the Department for Transport now for about part of a decade and a half, and it's actually a fascinating experience. Our kind of role in rail has increased. You know, when I was, there's probably only a few people in here as old as I am. You know, when I first travelled on the railways, it was a nationalised industry. Innovation wasn't its strong point. Public service was a strong point. Sometimes it delivered on that, sometimes it didn't. But a huge amount has changed over the last decade and a half, and it's been interesting to see that. I'm going to touch on one of those things in a second. So one of the crucial things when people say, come along, talk to the event, it's really important, is saying what the audience is. Now, I asked Patrick Malone, who's here, and he said, well, there'll be Network Rail, there'll be the TOCs, you know, the usual people, and then there'll be some kind of brainy tech people. Now, I'm assuming we have got some brainy tech people in the room, because some of what I'm going to say is directed directly at you. But before I start, I just wanted to just kind of say one or two words about the kind of industry. So people often ask me, and I'm sure they ask people in this room, particularly those who actually work for TOCs or Network Rail, is what's wrong with railways, Phil? They're rubbish, aren't they? And my first answer is obviously to point out the government is investing more money per day, 73 million quid, all that stuff. Then if I'm feeling in a good mood, point out how fantastic Network Rail are. If I'm in a good mood, I also then point out what the TOCs are doing and the innovation they've brought, and I say loads of fantastic stuff. But sometimes the answer I give is there's a lot wrong with the rail industry, and I blame the Victorians. What did the Victorians ever do for us? Well, they built the railways, obviously. Now, they didn't plan the railway very well, but that's a different story. The thing they did was build it, and it was a fantastic achievement. The railway network in the UK is a fantastic achievement, and it used the innovation of the time. Didn't use many health and safety rules, but we can sort of pass over that. But it built a fantastic network, and it ran that network. And at the turn of the last century, 2000 to 2000, whatever this century is, we were still running that same network, and I think that was our problem. It was essentially a Victorian network, and that network isn't fit for purpose. And we found that in so many respects in the last kind of decade and a half. It's a constrained network, it's an old network, and it's not a very green network. And the kind of story from the DFT perspective over the last couple of decades has been, how do we deal with the success of railways operating on that pretty creaky old system? And it has been success. You know, more people travelling today than ever before. The standards of service are substantially better than when I was a kid. the service people get are better, but that's come at a pretty significant cost. And the cost has been in terms of hard money as much as anything else. Because our answer to the kind of capacity challenge of all those people travelling, we haven't got many answers. We can run more trains, but in the end, the infrastructure can't carry them. We don't want to put fares up, because that's what the private sector would do. If you've got a product, you can price people off. We can't do that for various political and kind of moral reasons. When we try and build capacity, which is essentially the only thing we can do, we come up against a load of problems. You know, we're building capacity in a network that is running live. People don't like us closing the network. And when we're building things, we can try and do the possessions in the evening. We can try and do it at the weekends, but people don't like that either. The disruption that that's caused affects our train operators. It's an expensive and disruptive way to travel, and it has an effect on the people we're all serving ultimately, which is the public. And it's a massive challenge, and it's a challenge that's going to be even more acute because the numbers are still high in terms of patronage on the network. The technology challenge in terms of fares, ticketing, the kit that runs inside and on trains, the digital railway technology revolution that we're going to face at some stage, that's all happening. The environmental challenge is certainly not going away. It's getting more acute by the minute. So there's a huge number of challenges to this network, and there's not much scope for actually physically improving it. And that's why this work and the people in this room are absolutely vital, because in the end, the only way we're going to do this is through innovation. It's going to be through the thing that we didn't realise we were going to do. The thing that isn't, stop the network, dig it up, put a new bit of track in, put whatever technology we can find, bung that in, pay a premium, because actually you always pay a premium for the tech when you first use it. That answer's not going to work, and we need some better answers, and the people in this room are hopefully going to provide it. And the DFT part of the deal, because though I'm a civil service, and at heart, I'm still a kind of Stalinist. I'm still living in the 70s, and I want to run everything from the centre, and I want it all to be what the government says. That kind of, sadly, that's not going to happen, because we're not very good at coming up with new ideas. I think what government is good at, and I would say this because I represent their representative on the civil service, is we're good at identifying problems. We are good sometimes at coming up with money. Not often, not much, and not enough, but actually we're a source of income. And we're good at, I think nowadays, getting other people's ideas and doing what we can with them. And that's what this is all about. We're going to put forward modest money. It is modest compared with what we're spending on railways, but it's money nevertheless. And we can give you support. And that's what this is all about. And hopefully with a small bit of money for us, the knowledge that we're behind you, the knowledge that actually when products are made, we're going to do what we can. That's our part of the deal. And hopefully your part of the deal, people in this room, is to come up with those ideas and solve those problems for the future, because we're not going to do it and no one else is going to do it. So the challenge is there for you. We need you to come together for this to work. We need to invest, but other people are going to need to invest. The kind of part of the model that I described earlier, as well as the capacity challenges, is a kind of industry structure challenge. You know, we give TOCs fairly short-term custodianship of their bit of the network. We don't really incentivise them to come up with ideas that might take longer than a 7-year, 15-year window even. And that's the structure we've got. Now, we're looking at a whole load of those kind of structures of the industry thing as part of a rail review. And I can talk about that for ages. But at the moment, we haven't quite incentivised you to come up with those ideas if you're in the TOC community. But we need you to come together. We can look at things elsewhere, but for this, we're going to need your help as well, and so are the other people in this room. Crucially, we need to basically use the innovations. It's easy for some young woman or man in a room, drinking coffee with an iPad, to come up with a fantastic idea. The challenge for all of us is take that idea, develop it, put it in the trains of the future, and we haven't been good at that. We've tried, and we've done some really good things. So we've got new centres of excellence. We've brought together experts, universities, and the rail industry. We've got a lot of work in hand to do that. Through Innovate UK, we delivered more than £30 million in innovation. We did that in this year, planned for 2019, sorry. There are 40 live projects, and there's loads of new ideas. Last year, we launched the first of a kind programme, and that was the kind of third of a kind of innovation series. This is the latest. The last programme was successful, but we want to build on it. It's never enough. 10 teams won funding in a previous round, and the focus was on demonstrating tomorrow's trains today. The teams delivered live demonstrations. They're close to that. And there's activities. There's a smartphone app that highlights landmarks as you go past. There's a guide to visually impaired passengers helps them get through the stations to their seats. Kind of passenger-friendly stuff that really, really is gold dust, really, in this modern world. We want to see more of that. We want to see a focus on the environment as well. But we certainly want to see a kind of passenger focus. And that's what today's about. It's about first of a kind 2. So it's a £3.5 million competition, and it focuses on, as before, but with more focus on demonstrating innovations and decarbonisation. When Joe Johnson, our minister, announced this, he said, there are many brilliant ideas already out there that with just minor modifications could help to transform rail journeys for passengers across the network. We want to hear from those companies whose projects fit this template, because we can offer them the grant funding to make that a reality. And we all got different views about politicians. Those in the civil service, we rub shoulders with them every day. But actually, I know he meant that. This is absolutely kind of at the heart of our rail minister's priorities. And that's what today's competition is about. We want to deliver innovative demonstrators to the railway network, on stations, vehicles, and on the infrastructure. Our priorities are kind of things I've touched on, delivering stations, journeys with a zero carbon footprint, low-cost electrification, end-to-end journeys, supporting travellers with accessibility requirements, all absolutely vital. And decarbonisation, of course, is one of the great challenges of the age. You know, going back to that Victorian world, we all love that world of the railway children. When I talked about my life earlier, I wasn't quite old enough to remember the railway children, but I remember the film. You know, we love that. We love the smoke billowing out. We love the trees. You know, we had a lot of other people in Patrick's team had a lot of work over the summer about trees and the Network Rail's tree felling policy. Someone even older than me pointed out, well, in the old days, there were no trees because they'd been burnt to the ground by the trains as they went through, where the smoke destroyed it. It was basically a war zone either side of the railways. So we loved that world, but it was a pretty dirty world. And we'll never go back, sadly for some of us. And we want to get rid of diesel-only trains by 2040. And I go back to the challenge I spoke about earlier about us kind of building on a live network. You know, ideally, we would have, in a blink of an eye, electrified the whole network. And then in a second blink of the eye, every signal on that network would be digital. That costs a huge amount. And as I've said, it's very, very hard practically to deliver. You people are hopefully going to find a different way of doing things than that terrible kind of costly, expensive and impractical process of just build. And I'm amazed to see how many people in this room, so I don't know if what I've said is any news to you. I assume it isn't, and you know the agenda we face, and you gave up your time to come here, for which I and the team are very, very, very grateful. So enjoy the briefing, take time to learn about the priorities of the competition. You know, in my mind, I just want people out there to come up with fantastic ideas. But sadly, you can't just put that in a prospectus. You know, we have to run a competition which is fair. We have to have rules. We have to be able to compare. So there are going to be rules to this competition. So in one part of your mind, I've got to come up with some fantastic ideas. In the other part of my mind, I've got to make sure they fit with the rules of this competition. Otherwise, I won't get the money. So that's what today's about. It's about telling you the priorities, the things we're going to be looking for, the things we kind of value. And to start forming those kind of collaborations, which is one of the things I think we can do in government. You know, we can collaborate with people and we can encourage other people to as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing the kind of proposals this produces, the new collaborations and a kind of portfolio of projects that maybe not today, maybe not even tomorrow, but in the kind of years ahead will kind of transform this network because we really, really do need it. That's all I intended to say. I'm going to now pass over. And we're going to enter into the kind of meat of the day. And thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Phil. Excellent introduction to the thinking at DFT as well as to the competition. So thank you very much indeed for that. I now call on Kelvin, Davies and Rhianne Montgomery to introduce the competition the scope and the application process. There will be time for question and answers on this, by the way.
Good morning, all. So I'm Kelvin Davies, and Rhianne will join me on stage in a moment for the second part of the presentation. But building on what Phil said, I think it is an interesting opportunity, this competition. And let me just set the scene by describing the vision. So, Phil, you talked about making big differences to the railways, but actually, when I used to do some work in sport, and there was about marginal gains. So a percentage here, a percentage there, 0.5% even, or maybe even 0.01% of a difference would make a difference to the railways. So that's the sort of vision that I see that the innovation community in this room might be able to bring their skills to bear on. If you can do a 10% change in performance on the railways, that's fantastic. But reassured, if you're making a 1% change or a 0.1% change, that has a huge benefit to the overall performance of the network. And if we aggregate all of those marginal gains of everyone in this room, then that's the opportunity to make a big difference. The vision for the competition is also exactly as Phil says. In the UK, we have fantastic capability. We've done lots of great things. The difficulty with the railways is often getting that great things out of the box under your bed and getting it onto the railways. So this competition isn't about generating new shoeboxes full of clever ideas. It's about taking some capability that you've already got, demonstrating it in a live environment, in an environment where the railway stakeholders and ultimately the people with the money to buy that innovation will be able to see it. So that's what we're talking about, and that's the vision of this competition. We'll now go through a quick introduction to Innovate UK. I know all about Innovate UK. Some of the audience may know about it as well, but let me quickly introduce what we are and what we're about. We are a government-funded organisation. We are the UK's national innovation agency, and our job is to invest public funding to grow the economy. Our headline stats are there. We'll just go through the bottom line. We've existed for 11 years. We've invested 3.75 billion into the economy through supporting 11,000 different projects. So there's roughly about 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 projects live at any time. So sadly, Phil, the rail portfolio is just a small drop in the ocean of those projects, but they are making a difference. But 11,000 projects is a huge portfolio. We have, over the years, we've created 70,000 jobs and 8 jobs for every organisation that we've invested in. And that is our role. If through creating those jobs there is a benefit to an industry, that's even better. And in this case, the competition is 100% funded for the by the DFT. So we have that dual objectives of, yes, growing the economy, but more important is to deliver benefits to the railway. Other things we do, we run competitions. We run a lot of competitions. We'll tell you about those in a minute. 20 or 30 live competitions at any time. If this competition ultimately proves the right competition for you, that's fantastic. If it isn't, please have a look at the other competitions because you might find something of interest out there. We also manage on behalf of our colleagues in Bays the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund. That, I can't tell you what that's about because it's up to industry to decide what it's about. We've had 3 waves already. There might be future waves. If there are, please engage with that, have a look at it and see if it's something you can contribute to. And our role is to fund and connect. When delegates come to an event like this, they often, firmly in their gaze is the budget and how do we get our hands on that and how do we put in a good application. But actually, the connecting is as important, which is why we host events like this with the support of our colleagues from the KTN. So please do take the time to talk to the other delegates in the room. And through that, see what ideas you can spark that you hadn't had in your brain when you arrived in the room. I often find just by talking through a problem that suddenly something catalyzes in my brain and something new pops out. That is why we host these events. So please talk to as many of your fellow delegates as you can during the day. The other thing we do, Innovate UK, we manage catapults. We've got Neil, I saw you earlier on. We've got a couple of representatives from the catapults today. So Neil is from the National Composite Centre in Bristol. The catapults are, again, part funded by government, and they're designed to help to fire the very thing that Innovate UK is trying to do. Is there anybody else from a catapult? Of course, yes, Steve from the Transport Systems Catapult. So talk to these 2 gentlemen. They can explain a bit more about the catapults and maybe contribute to your projects and to your applications. And also the KTN. We support the KTN. The KTN are sort of like an arm's length part of Innovate UK. That gives them the independence to get involved in supporting the formation of collaborations and provide occasionally a review process for completed applications as well. So if you're not sure about something, if you're not sure about your application towards the end of its authoring, then talk to Ian or his colleagues and they can help you with that. So where are we going? The competition today. The primary objective of today is for those in the room, as Phil says, who have great ideas, to meet those in the room who have the assets on which we need to demonstrate those great ideas. So if you look at the delegate list, you will see we have a very powerful list of delegates in the room today. A lot of railway specialists representing a number of Roscoes, TOCs and Network Rail. And it's important for the innovation community to get access to them, which again is why we hosted this event. A number of those teams will be giving pitch sessions later on today to make themselves known. Your challenge is to find out who they are before that so that you get an early shot at meeting them and talking to them over the first coffee break. We'll also take you through some of the bricks and mortar of the competition. We'll tell you what the competition's about. We need to do that. We'll try and bring the scope to life. You can ask questions. Rhianne, Steve and myself don't promise to answer all questions. If we're not sure about something, we can't hazard a guess. We will take the time to go away and reflect. But we'll take as many questions as we can and give you answers if you have any. We talked about the KTN, and networking opportunities is down the bottom, but it's actually the whole point of the briefing event is networking opportunities. So, as Phil's already said, this is first of a kind round 2. First of a kind round 1 kicked off this time last year, and all the projects are still in progress, but they're delivering really promising results. We have a couple of the teams here in the room today, I'm pleased to see. 2 teams. Those guys, if you want to talk to them, from Transreport and Guide Dogs for the Blind, can give a bit of insight what it's like to work with Innovate UK and how their projects are going. And we're delivering this programme on behalf of Department for Transport. Because Innovate UK is a big machine for running competitions, when an aligned department comes to us and says, please can we use your machine to achieve some of our aims, we're very happy to allow other government departments to avail of our services and to run competitions through us. So we're very pleased, Phil, to run this competition on behalf of Department for Transport. So the competition summary. This is an SBRI competition. However, it is open to all organisations and there's £3.5 million available. Any organisation is eligible to apply. A thing that is often very appealing is that it's 100% funded. That is the model for SBRI, so it's not a grant, it's a procurement. There'll be a contract associated with this, with your winning application, and you will be required to deliver against the deliverables you stated. Projects will be up to 9 months. The reason for that is we have a commitment to deliver the benefits to the railway as quickly as possible. And all projects need to be within that timescale and to plan to start in March next year. And primarily the work needs to be carried out in the UK. So when you get a demonstration, it needs to be with a UK-based railway organisation, be that Network Rail, be it a TOC or be it a Roscoe. In terms of the eligibility, we apply a number of eligibility criteria to an application. That is to bring to bear on the challenge, the right mix of teams that we think will deliver the best chance of a result. So, for this competition, you have to have somebody who's a potential integration partner, by which we mean somebody who knows how to bolt things onto railway assets. You need to have somebody who owns those assets, be that a station, be that an item of rolling stock, or be it a section of the infrastructure, and we have representatives of all of those in the room today. We would like somebody to be an experienced rail organisation because it may be a surprise to you, but there are some rules and procedures and policies you have to adhere to bolt things onto live railway assets. And you should approach an organisation who might ultimately be a customer for your innovation. That sounds quite daunting, but to reassure you, they could all be the same organisation. So you could easily tick all of those boxes just by partnering with one other organisation. And we'd also like, and we're very receptive to applications from the rail industry, obviously, but it would be great to see some ideas coming in from other sectors. So we're particularly receptive to applications from outside the rail sector. And the bottom line repeats what we've said earlier. It would be very good if you're planning to demonstrate something in rolling stock if a train operating company, a manufacturer, an operator or an infrastructure owner were involved. What First of a Kind is about then, as I said, is taking that shoebox with the great innovation out from under your bed and putting it on the railway. So it's about high TRL technology, so high technology readiness level equipment. Stuff that you've already proved works, you know would work, you've only had a chance to show how good it was. And what we want to do, and that's the reason for the title First of a Kind. First of a Kind refers to it's the first of a kind of this type of innovation on the railway industry. That's not to say that the technology hasn't been deployed somewhere else. If it's working very happily every day of the week in automotive or in aerospace, that's absolutely fine. As long as its first use on the railway industry hasn't already happened, you can bring it into this competition and you will be in scope. And what we want to pay you to do and to fund you to do is to integrate that innovation within the railway network, within the railway system, to prove that integration is achievable and to de-risk it so that observers can suddenly see that this innovation, it is a fantastic thing. It does work. We are interested in this. It provides exactly what we want. That's what the competition is about. Once you've done that, that's not the end of it. We don't want you to just bolt it onto a train and walk away. We want you to collect some feedback from whoever the innovation is aimed at. So if it's aimed at the railway traveller, collect some feedback from them. If it's aimed at decarbonisation, measure the effect it's having on decarbonisation. And that is absolutely critical. A lot of innovators tend to forget the marketing aspect or the usability aspects of their innovation. Please build into your work plan a significant work package which reflects that aspiration and that requirement from your application. And we want you to show it to customers. I mean, it's an innovator's dream in a way. We will pay you to take your innovation and show it to the very people who are going to buy it. It is true that if the customers like it, we'll be delighted. If they don't like it, you need to find out why and to redesign your system so that it meets their future requirements. So what First of a Kind is not about is the opposite of those. It's not about new technology. It's not about R&D. There might be a little fragment of R&D in your application, but it should not be the bulk of it. And it's not about developing something new that hasn't been tried and tested somewhere before. It's about taking something that you already have a pretty good idea will work, but has never been used on the railways. So the objectives are to show how your technology can be integrated onto the railways, to prove that when it has been integrated, it does what you expected it to do, which might sound obvious, but if you believe it's going to enhance the customer experience, then let's prove it does so. Your deliverable should be a demonstrator of your technology within whatever railway setting you're intending to place it. So it might be a station, it might be a rolling stock, or it might be on the infrastructure. What we're really trying to do is to help those small industries to take that final step to the market and to say to potential customers, we have demonstrated that our kit works where it's supposed to work. So what we'll fund is the integration and the user testing, much less so on the R&D. At the end of the project, it needs to be field tested and ready for use. You need to gather evidence all the way through that process. If it was difficult to integrate with a particular item of rolling stock, why was that and how did you overcome it? And at the end of it, you need to demonstrate to the stakeholders why it was a good innovation and why they would want to buy it. And as I've already mentioned, within the themes of this competition, which is enhancing customer experience in stations and decarbonisation, you're at liberty to focus on pretty much the whole railway system. So it's a pretty broad brush approach. We have said we would like you to demonstrate your technology in a live environment. That is the aspiration, that is the goal, and that's the desire. But sometimes it is impossible. So it is conceivable that in your application you could descope a little bit and demonstrate somewhere that is highly representative of those environments, but isn't quite a live railway environment. So we're thinking of test tracks. We might think of off-network stations, even heritage railways, if that's what you need to do. But the target, and you should achieve this if you can, is a live railway environment. And we have the stakeholders, as I've said, in this room who can help you to achieve that. What your demonstrator should do is to deliver benefits. I know that sounds obvious, but we get an awful lot of innovations that nobody would ever want to buy because they don't clearly deliver any benefit to anyone except the innovator's bank account. So it is really important to focus on the demonstration of the benefits that your technology will bring to bear on the railways. So we're talking about Phil's marginal gains again. So how is this going to improve capacity? How is it going to reduce carbon? How is it going to increase customer satisfaction? You should demonstrate why customers might buy it, which is a little bit aligned to the first. And you should explain what your route to market is. In terms of the rules of the competition, your project must de-risk the take-up of these technologies. It also has to be pre-commercial, so SBRI rules require that activities within this competition are pre-commercial. So we'll fund the railway organisations to work with you, but there can't be any commercial relationship between you until after this activity is over. As I've said, you have to collect feedback. You have to consider the priorities of current and future franchises. I'd advise you to have a look at the documents on the DFT website to see what the priorities for the future franchises are likely to be. We've also got a presentation later on from HS2 that will give an insight into the sort of things they're thinking of for HS2 when that opens. The 4 Cs have been around for a while: carbon, customer, capacity, and cost. In your application, please emphasize how your work will contribute to those. And you should provide proofs. So we'd like to see rigorous proofs at the end of your project as to why your innovation was successful. Or not, because not all innovations are. But that is equally important, because that will help us to build on that and to move forward. The themes you've probably read for yourselves. So this is what the innovation community tends to focus on. Theme 1 is decarbonisation of the railway. There are 2 slides which contain the bullet points for this, and maybe I will just quickly touch on them. Transferring ideas from other sectors we've talked about. Stations with a zero carbon footprint. Improvements in air quality. Innovative powertrain and energy storage systems. Alternatives to fossil fuels. Battery and dual power systems. As well as energy requirements of the whole system. Lightweight, energy efficient rolling stock. Holistic approach to energy use, and other technologies that will contribute to decarbonisation. We always put in a bit of a catch-all clause at the bottom in case we get a fantastic application which doesn't directly address any of the bullets that were listed formally. So we will accept a real eureka moment application which doesn't address any of the above, but it will need to be a real eureka moment application. In terms of the second theme, customer experience in stations, again, we're looking to deliver a seamless end-to-end journey. Accessibility, we've talked about, and we have teams already working on first-of-a-kind round 1 to deliver particular aspects of that. Ticketless gate lines, virtual assistant technology, and enhanced dynamic wayfinding for everyone. We were at York Station earlier in the week after a York briefing, and it was pointed out to us that there were no signs on York Station to tell you how to get out of the station, which is interesting. Sometimes the stations we take for granted, we don't even notice these obvious truths. Influencing behaviour through nudging, by which we mean just perhaps subliminally nudging passengers where we want them to be rather than telling them, particularly through things like endless station announcements, one of my pet hates, and passenger reliable, consistent information during disruption and passenger management. As before, if another fantastic idea comes along that isn't covered in that list, we will also be receptive to that. Where do those themes come from? They come from primarily the railway industry's learned thinking accumulated over many years and delivered through 2 primary sources. One is the Network Rail Challenge Statements on the left, and on the right we see the Rail Technical Strategy Capability Delivery Plan. If you're familiar with the rail industry, you should already know these documents. If you don't, please take time to have a look at them, and they will provide more information on the aspirations of the railway industry along with these goals. We're having a presentation from Network Rail later on today, I hope. And we've also had, in defining the scope, we've had significant impact from other stakeholders. So there's a first-of-a-kind steering group, and HS2 has had a hand on the tiller as well. So it's been a combined effort to come up with the scope, which is a scope we believe is directly relevant and critical for the railway industry. Things we won't fund is, again, the opposite of what we will fund, but it's sometimes worth emphasising it. We will not fund applications which, for all of their quality and their innovation, could never ultimately be adopted by the railway industry. That could be for many reasons. There are rules and policies on the railway industry which might be tweaked, but there are a number that will never be overcome. So something that directly contravenes working practice on the railways, unfortunately, no matter how fantastic, probably won't be funded. Now we need innovations to be within a year of being ready for market. We're looking for a significant change. We get a lot of applications that are in a theme. We get a lot of applications that look a bit like the applications we got the last time. Themes get in vogue, they get very fashionable, and everyone jumps on those themes. It would be great if there were some real surprise innovation applications in here, things we hadn't seen before. So don't be frightened to find something in retailing, perhaps, or space, or somewhere else, and to think that that could be used on the railways. It'd be very nice to see some applications which are radically different from the run-of-the-mill. We are looking for high TRL. We know we need low technical risk, obviously, because you've already proved that the innovation works. Within your team, you need an effective collaboration that can deliver to the railways. We want a demonstrator. That is a key thing. It's not about just delivering the innovation. We want to see that demonstrator. We want the collection of feedback, and we want your potential customers to see the innovation at work. And for that reason, we need the demonstration phase towards the end of the project. In terms of our schedule, we kicked off our briefings in York earlier this week. Here we are in London on the 11th, and we have another briefing in Cardiff next week. Our applications is worth stressing. You've got a comfortable amount of time to put together your team and to get your application in. Registration, which precedes the deadline by a week, is when the option to register to receive the document pack closes. So you need to register by noon on the 21st of November. I think in the competition documents it says 12 p.m., which is right, but it sometimes confuses people. So 12 p.m. is noon. And we do get people phoning us up at 1 minute past saying, I've missed the deadline, here's my application, can you please submit it for us? And the answer is no, we can't, because that team had 1 minute more to fine-tune their application than all the other applications. So those deadlines are firm, fixed, and there are no negotiations, and it's noon on the 2 dates indicated. If you're successful or unsuccessful, we'll let you know by the 11th of January. We will issue contracts on the 8th of February, and we'll expect you to be ready to mobilise and to get up to speed in March. And again, that has to be achieved in order to meet the timescales of the programme. And at that point, I'm going to give you, so if you're sitting there thinking, I don't know whether this competition is for me or not, what we're going to do now is take you through what happened in First of a Kind Round 1. The reason we do that isn't because we're proud of what's happened in that programme. It's to give you some indications of the types of projects that Innovate UK funds and the sort of projects which are successful through our process. And you do have the advantage that you can talk directly to two of the teams here in the room later today. We haven't warned them that's going to happen, but if you're willing, that would be great. So, Rhianne.
Just say that the slides that you're seeing will be available on the website for you. So I've noticed quite a few people furiously scribbling away. But the slides will be available in a couple of days' time for you to look through. Okay, sorry, Rhianne.
Thank you, Rhianne. Good morning, everyone. I'm Rhianne Montgomery. I'm the Programme Manager from Innovate UK for the rail portfolio. So alongside Kelvin, I specifically look after the DFT Rail Innovation Programme. So I'm just going to give you a quick flavour of what happened in First of a Kind Round 1. We've been a lot kinder to you this time in terms of timescales. You'll notice you do have an extra few weeks on top of the First of a Kind Round 1 to get your consortium and your application done. Again, it was a similar sized budget. We funded 10 projects up to 350,000. SBRI again, but the difference with First of a Kind Round 1 is that they were up to 12 months, and we are asking you for this one to get your projects in 9 months or under, and that's to meet the commitments we've made to DFT in terms of finances. Okay, so I'm just going to talk you through some of the projects we funded. Oh, sorry, I've gone too far. There we go. So we had 20 applications for First of a Kind Round 1, and we funded 10. So it's a really, really good success rate. So I hope that does give you some confidence to apply. and get your project in one of those 10 that we do fund. They have all successfully kicked off. They are in progress, and we are very, very proud and excited about the 10 that we do have in progress. So I'm going to talk you through the 10 we've got, again, just to give you a flavour of what we have funded, and you can hopefully talk to some of the projects in the tea break. Okay, so we funded an adaptable carriage which looks to make the best use of passenger trains that are potentially empty and could be carrying cargo. So it looks at a concertina-type seating arrangement. The next one is a new seating approach to maximise train passenger capacity. So this seeks to improve passenger capacity by up to 30%, depending on the type of seating arrangement in use. Some of the seats are quite small for intercity express journeys. So that's another one of them. Closer Fit is a project that will validate a passenger's ticket. Alongside your seats, you've got a reserved seat. You can validate your seat, and then that seat is yours for the journey. But I'm sure several people in this room have gone onto a carriage, seen all reserved seats, but there's no one actually sat in them. So this project will seek to address that problem. Demonstrating tomorrow's train today is about setting up a reliable network on board a train that can be used for onboard staff to access things like CCTV, links with other trains. The aim then is that part of this network can be used for other passenger services. The Augmented Reality Train Kit and Fantasia Express project was the wild and wacky project from this one. It's fantastic. It's using augmented reality to improve a passenger's experience on board the train. So can you imagine going through Scotland and you see the Loch Ness Monster appear on your table? Just imagine it, it'd be fantastic. But there's so many uses for this, so we're really excited to see this rolled out. The Passenger Assist system aims to give passengers the ability to request assistance as and when they need it, not when we dictate that they should have assistance. So not phoning up 24 hours in advance and hoping someone might be there to meet you. It's giving passengers freedom to travel when they want to travel. The Traffic project, Train Footfall from Intelligent Counters, is looking at passenger behaviour on stations, passenger numbers. So this is going to provide really key data that may then inform future franchises. It could help the TOCs assess their timetabling. This is really important data this is going to produce. Inclusive onboard experiences through digital augmentation is our Guide Dogs project, and they are here today, as Kelvin said earlier. So this is looking at state-of-the-art technologies for people with visual impairment, so using 3D city soundscape mapping. It's using beacons inside stations to provide internal mapping within the station. And it's looking at just providing an end-to-end journey, and again, giving a passenger confidence that they can travel completely independently, and it'd be a stress-free journey. The Way Scout real-time onward journey platform for rail passengers on the train. Again, looking at end-to-end journeys, and it's looking at that last mile of the journey and linking passengers up together. And Smart Train, a responsive passenger management system. They're also here today, so please talk to them as well. And they are actually looking at passenger behaviour on trains. So yeah, some great projects we've got. Okay, so the upside of First of a Kind 2 is that we've seen what didn't go so well in First of a Kind round 1. The things that we saw were incomplete applications. If you want to jeopardise your application, by all means feel free to leave a section completely blank, but it will still get scored, probably not particularly highly, and it will affect your overall mark. So please make sure you have filled in all of the sections. The inappropriate budget, one of the biggest issues we saw was that the cost didn't include VAT. Now, as this is effectively a procurement exercise, your costs must include VAT. So bear that in mind when you put your costs in. We've set you a budget of 350,000, so please do not submit your application asking for £1 million, because it's highly unlikely we'll consider it. Again, we've been explicit with the collaborators that we expect to see to form part of this consortium, and that's because we know the people we need to deliver these results and get these projects out on the railway for the DFT. So please make sure that you have the right people in your team. Late application, as Kelvin said, 12:01 is 1 minute too late. No exceptions. So this is quite an interesting graph. Just ignore the blue line for a second. And if you look at the green line, along the bottom, it starts off in days and hours. And then towards the right-hand side, it goes down to minutes before the deadline. So you can see 24 hours before the deadline, we had 20 applications. We then surged to 200. And if you look at the blue line, that peters off, and those applications become submissions. But we still had 20 applications that were over 50% complete that didn't get submitted. That's a huge amount of wasted effort. So please don't be that 11:59 person. Do it before and in good time. Okay, so the top tips, and I think I've covered these already for you, is read carefully the scope documents. Hopefully we've managed to answer a lot of questions and ambiguity you may have had around the scope already. Reread your documents several times over. As Kelvin has said already, the KTN can review completed applications and give you some gentle guidance, providing you haven't paid someone to write your application for you. Pay attention to the expected outcomes in the priority area and make sure that your application is actually addressing a problem. Don't come up with an innovation and then find a problem it fits. Find the problem first. Again, check there's a need for your project. There's loads and loads of great ideas out there, but we don't actually need them. So please make sure that it's a need for the railway. Make sure you're in scope. Make it clear why you're innovative. Why is no one else doing this? Why is your application different to anything we've seen before? And be very clear on your plans for exploitation, how you plan to actually get this out on the railway, because that is key for this competition. So I'm going to hand you back to Kelvin now, who's going to talk about some of the other competitions we've got at the moment.
Thanks. Nearly done, and then we'll open up the floor for questions about the scope. But I mentioned that Innovate UK runs a lot of competitions. At the current moment in time, these competitions are all open. The most important one, of course, is the one we're talking about today, which is on behalf of DFT. But if you find that this doesn't suit your needs, there are another 20 or so competitions out there, and that's a rolling program. Think about it. So every week a competition, well, every week probably about 3 competitions close and 3 new ones open up. You'll get the pack. The links are all live. You can click on those. But 2 I was asked to mention in particular on behalf of colleagues in the same team. These are IDP 15, which is a zero-emission vehicle program, which clearly aligns incredibly closely with the decarbonisation theme for the current competition. And also the Faraday Battery Challenge. If you have heard of that, that's great. If you haven't, that's a shame. The objective of this is, through the Industrial Strategy Challenge Fund, is to make the UK the world centre for batteries for electric vehicles. I have to admit the initial target is electric road vehicles, but that doesn't need to be the case going forward. It could also be rail. So have a look at the Faraday Battery Challenge competition. For this competition, I hope you've all found the competition documents already. They are available on the .gov website. There's 2 key documents. The left-hand side will take you to the scope, which is pretty much what we've been through today, and the right-hand side will take you through the guidance for applicants. And if you have any questions in the coming weeks as you craft your application and you're not sure about something, the centralised way to ask your question isn't to phone me up or to phone Rhianne up. It's to submit your email to that email address. The reason for that is that we know about the technical scope, but if you have a financial question, that's better dealt with by somebody else. So that's the correct address to lodge your questions with. Some of those get fielded by myself and Rhianne. Some of them go elsewhere in the organisation. But they're very receptive. They're very efficient, and they have a turnaround time, I think, of a day, 2 days, something like that. So it's a good place to ask your questions. And once you've finished your application, if you want to have it reviewed by the KTN, Ian Stock and the team at the KTN will offer that service as well. So they won't proofread your application, they won't contribute to your application, but they'll review a completed application and tell you if you've missed anything obvious or if there's anything that they think might improve it. So good luck in applying, and what we'll do now, if we've got time in, should we take some quick questions on scope? We've got another, we should warn you, we've got another session of me and Rhianne coming up, which we'll go through more quickly. But if there's any questions on scope or the competition in general, we're happy to take them now.
Maybe a bit of an obvious question, but can you define customers? Is a customer some internal customer B2B, or is a customer me and my train ticket?
No, it's always confusing in railway, isn't it? Why is it so confusing in rail, Phil? Who's the customer? So the customer is whoever would buy your innovation. So that is most likely not the railway customer. It's most likely a TOC, a Roscoe, or Network Rail, or TfL, or HS2.
Hello. Yeah, just on the TRL for clarification. So state you can't go beyond 6 or 7 because you're state aid, but when you say high TRL, you want, so could you be a bit more clear about that? Are we coming in at 3, 4 or 5, and are we going up to 1 year away from 9 is 6, 7 or 8? Have you got, can you be clear on that?
Yeah, so your innovation should be in a shoebox under your bed already, and should be already high TRL, which is 7, 8. So it should already exist. What isn't high TRL is bolting that onto a train. So the premise is you don't know how to do that yet. So yes, exactly.
If we have several off-the-shelf solutions already, can we bid for several of the problems, and are they possible to win budgets for both or 3 of them, for instance?
So you're saying if you've got, would you like to apply multiple times? Is that what you're saying? Yeah. Yes. Yeah. It's a procurement exercise. The normal rules that you might sometimes see from Innovate UK, about 3 applications maximum, don't apply.
Hi, systems integrator and technology integrator. Can you say a little bit more about what exactly that means? We're a data science startup, but we have hands-on experience of integrating stuff onto various bits of the train network already, but there's no way I would describe us as a rail systems integrator.
Yeah.
Do we need to find somebody who would describe themselves as that?
So the question you ask is a very good one. There is a rule in writing scope documents, which is never put something in the scope that is difficult to demonstrate how an organisation meets that requirement. We've thought long and hard about that term, rail technology integrator. We left it in. But it's quite difficult if you think about it. Is that somebody who's done it once, 20 years ago, or is that somebody who does it every day of the week? So your challenge is to make a case that will impress our assessors that within your team you have met that requirement.
So we don't have to go and find Oracle or someone against Oracle.
Your application will be stronger if you have somebody who is an integrator every day of the week, and you'll be on a safer footing. But you don't have to.
Hi there. Question about decarbonisation. Would you count, say, a modal shift from air travel to rail travel as decarbonisation, or does it have to be from the rail system itself?
I'm looking at Phil. I think this is funded by the rail programme, isn't it, Phil? So you'd be looking for benefits directly to the railway industry.
I think you probably need to provide evidence as to what the net result would be. If you're moving from one mode to the other, a particular piece of technology, a particular group of people, and that resulted in a kind of net improvement in decarbonisation, I think you need to make that case. If you just assert that because these people used to be on a plane or certainly on a car, it's by inference a benefit. I think that probably won't work. You need to kind of prove it, but in principle, it doesn't matter where the mode comes from as long as there is a net benefit.
Yes, hello, Mark Donovan from UK Power Network Services. You mentioned previously with the first wave that the total project costs should be within bounds. Organisations were asking for essentially funding above that limit. What about for projects that have, for example, a 500k total project value, but you're only asking for 350 from yourselves?
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. If you're prepared to put in the rest of the money yourself, that's okay. But what we will still expect to see is that demonstrator, which is really key part of that project for the £350,000 that we would allocate.
And you need to know whether it's above that threshold or not.
Can you use the mic, please?
Sorry, do you need to know whether it's going to go above 350 or not?
No. So the grant application, so the application we expect to see from you will have a maximum figure of 350k. Whatever you do beyond that is entirely up to you.
Hi, I have a question about IP. So would I be right to assume any IP generated as part of this project is kept by the innovators, or is there part ownership IP?
Okay, so we actually have very little interest, well, no interest in taking your IP off you. Any IP generated as part of this project will remain with the project team, unless there is a clause to this. We've never actually invoked it. But the key part of this programme is to get stuff out on the railway. So if you come up with a fantastic project but you fail to exploit it, we actually have the right to exploit it on your behalf. So you must do something with it.
It's worth adding as well that all the background IP, which is what most innovation teams will arrive at this competition with, will be associated with the innovation. The foreground IP, in other words, the IP that will develop on this programme, is just how to bolt that innovation onto a railway asset. So that IP, in a sense, has relatively little value in its own right. So the IP question is often a thorny one and does raise lots of issues. But as Rhianne says, Innovate UK and DFT currently are not interested in owning IP for technology. We just want to see it out on the railway.
On decarbonisation, you've said that there's a 9-month demonstration period, but if there's anything to do with heating, that would eliminate next year's heating season from the demonstration period. Is that the intent?
It wouldn't quite eliminate next. Why do you think it would eliminate?
So a large part of the heating season is January and February. So if you've got to be ready to go on the 1st of March and demonstrate within 9 months, then you miss out the heating season for the demonstration.
It's an interesting question, isn't it? Anything to do with resilience has a seasonal aspect, and we've wondered about that as well. I mean, snow's the other thing that might come along or might not. That's a challenge you'll just have to manage within your application somehow. We've made it difficult, haven't we? Because we've said that the demonstration has to happen in the UK. Otherwise, you could have gone to South Africa, or we could talk about that afterwards, how we might manage that.
Hi, my name's Alan Kennedy from the NHS. We've got a number of shoeboxes that we think that might offer a benefit. Are we in the right competition here, or are we better off trading our proposals through the alternative health service, digital one?
It depends on Depends what's in your shoebox, I think. Right. Should we talk about what's in your shoebox later on?
Yeah.
Unless you want to tell the assembled audience what's in there.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking in terms of using omnichannel technologies to improve access to medicine, urgent care. So this is artificial intelligence, self-triage tools, avoiding patients getting ill in the first place, which is operating already across the NHS in London, but has a huge application for mobile transport services and hubs.
So I would have thought in terms of managing disruption, there could be a benefit there, but we could talk about that during the break.
Grant, thank you.
Yeah. Oh.
Morning, Kelvin. Just a quick question on the decarbonisation piece. Is it actually looking at true remediating carbonisation, or is it offsetting? So if you had a technology that could, say, make an engine roll more efficiently so it wouldn't actually use as much diesel, or is it actually looking for a true remediation, actually removing that in line? And also on that, would it be purely focused on carbon? Is it not looking at particulate matter and also nitrogen oxide as well?
It's an interesting question. Thanks, James. You're making us work on stage, so I don't know the answer to that. Your challenge in writing your application is to prove to the assessors that you're in scope. So, in a way, what Rhianne and myself think about what would be in scope is to an extent irrelevant. So it sounds as if you have a decarbonisation approach, and it sounds as if you could persuade the assessors that you were in scope. But again, we could talk about that, rather than me trying to answer that here. Could we talk about that over the break? Yeah.
Can we make this the last question?
Hiya.
Can we have two more? Can we have two more, Ian? Because the gentleman at the front's been trying for a while. Sorry. Kirsty.
Hi, it's Kirsty from Guide Dogs here. We're obviously benefactors of round 1 funding. Just checking whether or not we can apply for round 2 funding to extend the scope of the current project.
Strictly speaking, first-of-a-kind funding isn't for extending the scope of existing work, so we would hope that once your demonstration has happened with your round 1 funding, that you will find a customer who will buy it. So we wouldn't encourage organisations to bid successively for first-of-the-kind funding, because that's not the point. If on the other hand, you had an advancement on the current approach, which might make it more available to a greater number of the population, or a wider demonstration, that might be appropriate.
Yeah, or you've possibly found an alternative use, an alternative market. But yeah, you need to have gone sort of above and beyond what you've done in first-of-a-kind 1.
Okay, we'll make this the last question, as Ian suggests.
Thank you. Is the competition open to innovators based overseas bringing technology into the UK?
The short answer is yes. So subcontracts quite commonly go overseas from a first-of-a-kind SBRI activity because it is procurement. So the answer is yes, but we'd expect the work and the demonstration to be led in the UK.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
So that's quite enough of that. Thanks for all the questions. Rhianne, myself, and Steve, who we haven't introduced yet, but we will. We're all from Innovate UK. We're all on hand to answer any more questions you might have. The next section, I apologise, you're going to get Rhianne, myself, and Steve again for a while. The next question is about how you have to manually bid into the competition as an applicant. And this competition is, I'm going to say, Phil, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
The competition is run through SBRI. Steve is our new SBRI expert. So if you have any questions about SBRI, that's not a question for me or Rhianne, it's a question for Steve. We'll tell you about the eligibility criteria, the process for applying, submitting your application, the way forward, and questions and answers. This pack, in a way, we just want to make you aware that this pack exists. It is a walkthrough of how you would apply into the competition. You will get copies of this afterwards. So rather than laboriously go through this, I think we're going to skip through this quite swiftly. So SBRI, it's a misnomer. It's called Small Business Research Initiative, but it's open to all. So anyone can apply for an SBRI competition. It has those objectives. It's basically filling gaps against challenges, a little bit like we're seeing for the decarbonisation and enhancing stations competition that we're talking about today. You get 100% funding. It operates under state procurement rules. It's your duty to ensure that you comply with the state aid requirements of SBRI, if there are any. I'm looking to Steve. Very few. Yeah. Question about IP has already been asked. IP always rests with the supplier. We don't want it. We haven't got a mechanism to exploit it. There is a clause in there which commercial teams often don't like the look of. It's just there, as Rhianne said, because we have a duty to manage public funding. Please don't be frightened of the clause that says if you don't exploit your IP, we will exploit it for you, because we have never done so. But it has to be there in case we need to. Eligibility, we've talked about it. It's open to all. You have to carry out your work in the UK. You know about the requirements to include railway specialists. That's a summary of the competition, 9 months. And we'll talk you through the application form in a moment. There are 10 marked questions. That is quite important for you. Rhianne talked about the blank sections and question in applications. You'd be surprised how many teams leave sections blank. That is not a good thing to do. To apply to the competition, as from Monday this week, that green button you see there, big and bold, went live. You can now register for the competition, download the document pack, and have a look what's in there. Those are the dates. You know about them. The application process. Rhianne's going to take you through. Right.
Okay, please bear with me on this one. I'm going to try and keep it as quick as possible. There is a lot of information online, and these slides will be sent out as well. So as Kelvin said, it's 10 marked questions. Your last one is your declaration. But your first three are details. It's just you, details about your company, and hopefully these three should at least be fairly straightforward. Okay, question 4. This is about what we actually publish and we make public. So whilst we accept that you do want to hold on to as much of your IP and anything commercially sensitive, it's also quite important that you give a really good description because potential buyers will be reading this. So you do need to make sure it's an accurate description of your project. This is just telling us about your idea. Keep it simple. Please don't use any of the railway acronyms, TLAs, three-letter acronyms. We see a lot of those, and whilst our assessors are railway experts in their field, please don't make their job any harder than it has to be. You can also submit an additional 2 pages of A4 if you need to explain your idea further, and this can include a diagram. This is the technical summary, just giving a short background to the key technical challenges. It's just an outline of what your background technology is. Okay, it's current state-of-the-art and intellectual property. Here you need to detail any other project, any other technology that's available on the market, any existing IP, and please make it clear the existing IP if it places any restrictions on your freedom to operate for this project. Okay, this then fairly straightforward is the project plan and the methodology. You must include a Gantt chart as part of this section. Please make sure it's in PDF format. Again, a maximum of 2 A4 pages here. And this is just for us to see that you've got the appropriate project management structure in place to deliver this project. So it's all well and good having the great idea, but we need to be comfortable and assured that you're actually going to be able to deliver it. The technical team and expertise, again, reassure us that you have the knowledge and the expertise with the people in your team to deliver this project. Sell their knowledge. If you've got someone that's worked on some great railway projects, tell us. The assessors love to know these things, and this is really, really crucial part of the application process. We also want to know the proportion of time each team member will spend on the project as well. Okay, the application finances. I would urge you to spend a considerable amount of time looking at this because it may come back to haunt you later down the line if you were successful. So please give this some good thought. All costs, as I said, must include VAT, and I'll outline on the next slide what your eligible costs include. Okay, so your direct costs, I'm sure you probably all know this already, anything directly related to the project, so your labour, your T&S costs, any material costs, any capital equipment costs, and then your indirect costs, any overheads, your finance personnel, your PR, your back office staff, anything like that will be in your indirect costs. Commercial potential. As we've said so many times throughout this presentation, one of the keys is that we actually exploit this, your technology, and we see something on the railway. So please, again, make it clear the commercial potential on the railway for your technology. We want to see a marketable product at the end of your 9-month demonstration. The practicality, the application to the rail industry. Again, explain how this is a plausible innovation for the railway, something that the railway industry actually needs. the benefits to the railway. So whilst we do accept that there isn't always a cost benefit associated with the innovations, if you could try and put something tangible in, it could be a societal impact, it could be time. So please try and make it clear that your project will actually deliver a benefit to the railway of some description. And the final part of the application process, just a declaration. It's just really important that you not only have the authority to submit this application, but that you have discussed it with the company that you're submitting on behalf of. We do not expect individuals just to submit on their own without telling anyone in the company that they could potentially be awarded £350,000 and then expected to deliver the project as well. So it's just making sure that you've got consent to do this for the project. So the forms that you need to ensure you've got to make sure your application is complete. Your application form, appendices for question 5 and question 8, no more than 2 A4 pages, and all parts of your application are complete. So I'm going to hand you back to Kelvin, who will go through the assessment and selection. There you go.
We're nearly there. I think the assessment process is really interesting, actually. I used to sit in the audience at Innovate UK briefing events and listen to this. The way we assess applications is very simple, very straightforward, very robust, and really quite interesting. When this competition closes, we'll hopefully have a big pile of applications in our inbox. Last time we had 20. And each of those applications goes off to be assessed by 5 independent assessors. So the people who we know are experts in the railway industry, who are experts in decarbonisation, and who will score each application using a number of criteria. We have 5, and each application gets randomly allocated to different assessors. So for 20 applications, which is what we had last year, a total of 100 assessments have to take place. So it's quite a big process. And those assessors will score your application against a number of criteria, which I'll go through now. The questions that the assessors answer on our behalf are listed there. More importantly, the weightings that they'll apply to those questions are on the right-hand side. So everything is scored out of 10, apart from 2 questions, which we think were particularly important for this competition because of the requirement to get innovations onto the railway industry. I'll quickly summarise them. How well does the idea meet the challenge? Is worth 10. How valid is the technical approach? That's worth 10. Have you made a good case for the application of this idea to the railway industry? So that's quadruple points. So a great idea that isn't of any value to the railway industry is seriously compromised when we get to that question. So it's really important that there's a good case for having it on the railways. How innovative is it is worth 10. To what extent does it show a clear plan for establishing technical and commercial feasibility is worth 10. To what extent does the applicant have the right team in terms of skills and so on? That's worth 10. How appropriate is it the proposal financially is worth 10. And is there a clear commercial potential to lead to a marketable product is worth 20. So the most important thing is it's something that the railway wants. Each assessor then gets asked a final question. Would you approve this project for funding? And they say yes or no. We then aggregate all of the responses that come back. So we get nothing more complex than an Excel spreadsheet with the columns in the rows and with the assessor's scores aggregated, and we put them in order. So the most an application can score is 100. We put them in order from 100 down to whatever the lowest scoring application is, and we start funding at the top until we run out of budget. So in answer to the question, can you apply twice? You can. If you applied 10 times and your project was the 10 top highest scoring applications, you would get them all funded. And that is as simple as that. We sometimes have a certain amount of leeway in terms of managing the portfolio. In this case, we have 2 themes, so we will manage the portfolio in such a way that each of those themes is represented. So that's worth bearing in mind. We don't know which theme is going to be the more popular yet. Stations or decarbonisation. In terms of submitting the application, the important point to make here is these slides are in the pack. I'm not going to go through them laboriously. When you register for the competition, you will receive a document pack that will contain a number of documents. This is the process by which you achieve that. So basically, you download the documents, you fill them out, and you resubmit them. There are some key documents in there that you should look at. One in particular is the contract. So we will send you a draft copy of the contract. If you don't like the look of that contract, or your commercial team doesn't like the look of that contract, please do not bid into the competition, because that is ultimately what we'll expect you to sign should you be awarded funding. If you're awarded funding and then reject the contract, then we have sadly deprived another team of funding from this competition. So please make sure early on that your commercial team or whoever has to sign that off is happy with the contract. The process is very simple. You register, you download the documents, you complete the documents, you upload them, and then once we've been through the assessment process, we will let you know how you have done. So you'll get notifications and feedback. I'm not going to read these slides. They're in the pack, Ian, and the team, everyone will get these slides within a few days. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay. Again, it guides you through the various buttons you need to go. It's a user guide, if you like, to using our online application system. Rhianne's already named the appendices. Oh, one thing I should say is that the file names that the files will arrive when you receive your pack are not arbitrary. Please don't change them. If you can imagine receiving, what have we got? 20 live competitions at the moment. So it's really, really important that documents can be neatly assigned to the competition to which they relate and to be bundled in a pack. So please don't rename things. You upload the documents using the upload function. You will receive notification. We do various background checks on organisations bidding before we will offer a contract. That's generally not an issue for most organisations bidding into Innovate UK. And critically, if you're successful, we'll offer you some feedback, which is literally the assessor's notes. So when the assessor delivers a score, he or she will also provide a comment about why the score was high or why the score was low. If you get successfully offered funding, you could look at those comments and you'll be warmly gratified that your application was fantastic. If you don't get funding, there are valuable lessons to be learned from the assessor's feedback, so please take the time to look through the assessor's comments. You can't read any of that, but it is an aggregation of what the assessors said for a previous application. Things to note, we've already said please fill out the application form. I know it's obvious, but it is surprising how many. We had a completely blank one year. I'm not sure what that. It still went off for assessment. I mean, that's the. We've talked about VAT. Fair market value will be assessed. The contract terms are not negotiable. So, as I've said, I'll say it again. If you don't like the contract, please don't bid into the competition. Hopefully, you will like the contract. The clause that generally causes the issue is the IP clause. I'll say it again as well. We don't want the IP. We just have to protect government funding. And we will also apply an appropriate level of due diligence. We've talked about that before. I'm glad to say that all the questions that you ask in response to this section of the presentations probably won't come to Rhianne and myself. They'll probably go to our colleagues in Innovate UK. But thanks for that. And what I'm going to do now, if there's any questions of this, I'll invite Steve Sopp to come up on stage. Steve is our SBRI expert and is also here all day. So have we got time for some questions on the...
We've got a little bit of time just for a small number of questions on the application process, but I would say support at innovateuk.gov.uk is probably the right place to go for these questions. But if there are any at the moment, please ask away. Any questions?
From Cogitare. I just wanted to ask, are your assessors from the rail industry or from all industries?
Do you want to take that? So they're not exclusively from the rail industry, but they have to have enough rail domain expertise to answer some of the questions we're asking them. For this competition, we'll probably have about 20 assessors. We haven't decided yet. And they're strictly anonymous before you ask us who they are.
No?
Sorry, Ian, just one thing from me, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure.
So I did mention we've got some projects here with us today. I believe there's 3 in the room. If those projects are happy to just give a wave if you want to, so that during the coffee break, you can say hello to them. Thank you very much.
Can you go on a couple of slides? That's it?
Okay.
Good. Right, we're going to the break now. We're actually spot on time from the agenda. So break till 12 o'clock. After the break, we have some presentations from industry people from Greater Anglia, from Arriva UK Trains, Network Rail, Porterbrook, and then slightly shorter ones on HS2. One from the RDG, Sacha's here I can see, thank you Sacha, and one from the RSSB. And these will give you an overview of what the opportunities are from these asset owners within the scope of this competition. So it gives you an idea of what you can bid in for, what they're looking for particularly. Okay, so have a good break. Back at 12 o'clock, please. You ready, Ash? Okay. Right, this is the session up to lunch where we hear from the industry, not from Innovate UK or myself, about what they're offering, what the opportunities are within the scope of this competition, and then in terms of very short 2-minute pitches, which I'll introduce at the time, from you yourselves, the innovators, to say what you're offering into the competition. So the next set of 4 are Greater Anglia, Arriva UK Trains, Network Rail, and Porterbrook, who are all asset owners and offering something for you to link into for the competition. So first of all, Victor. Where's Victor? Oh, he's there. Sorry. Okay, Victor. If you'd like to come up, if you press the right-hand button. Okay. It doesn't work the slides on there. They'll work those, but that's so you can see what's on the screen. Okay. That's your screen, and that's the next one.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you. My name's Victor Fromm. I'm Head of Business Improvement for Greater Anglia. Hopefully the slides are going to move. And can we go to the next one? Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Victor Fromm, Head of Business Improvement for Greater Anglia. I've got 2 colleagues with me today. Tom Abraham, who's over here. He's in charge of the environment for us, and Takashi, who's sat down there. Takashi is partly Greater Anglia and partly Mitsui. So if you're looking for funding, he's the man to speak to. If you're looking for innovation, he's the man to speak to. Tom is our environmental and sustainability. So if you're looking for a project around the decarbonisation, then Tom's your man to speak to. Unfortunately, Tom's not going to be here all day, so grab him before he goes would be the key. I've been asked to talk a little bit about Greater Anglia, just 2 quick slides on Greater Anglia itself, and then some opportunities which are available to you. And we're probably unique in the TOC industry in as much as our stations we have on a lease from Network Rail. So if you've got some station improvements, with all due respect to the Network Rail person who's in the room, don't go to Network Rail, come to us, and we have a system in place. Can I say that? I'm on first, so that's fine. Okay, Greater Anglia. A little bit about Greater Anglia. We took over in February of 2012 and then ran the Olympics, very successful for us as a business. So that was great. We provide intercity services, we provide rural services and commuter services. And basically, if you think of the east of England, that's us. Norfolk, Suffolk, Essex, Cambridgeshire, that's basically us. We apparently move about 8% of passengers around the country. 8% of the people in the country, we move them around, and we have over 1,300 services a day. So if you want to trial something and see if it works, then we can do that for you. Not a problem. The other interesting thing with Greater Anglia is that we have a lot of old trains. If you're not a train person, the numbers are irrelevant, but if you can just think, we have lots of different sorts of trains, some very old ones. We're about to invest. We are investing, as you can see on the right-hand side, £1.4 billion on new trains. So we've got some trains coming across from Switzerland, and Bombardier building some trains for us as well. So all our old trains are going to go over the next couple of years. However, they're ripe for sticking things on and trying things out. So it'd be a good opportunity. But of course, if it then works, then why not stick it on a brand new train from Switzerland and whiz it round and be a showcase? Carrying on with Greater Anglia, we have approximately 450 committed obligations. That's a promise to the DFT, so things we have to do. So we have to increase the number of seats. We have to look at decarbonisation, which Tom will talk about. So the fact you're in the room can really help us to meet our obligations with the DFT. So there's a good link there for us. I thought we'd change that. We've got 133, not 154, stations. When you're thinking of stations, if you're not a rail person, please, please don't think King's Cross, Liverpool Street, St Pancras. They are lovely stations, but they are not the norm. Okay? Of our 133 stations, we probably have 3 or 4 big ones, we have about 30 medium-sized ones, and we have an awful lot of little ones. Some, as you know, don't have buildings, are just 2 platforms and something else. So please, when you're thinking about all the stuff that you're doing, don't think, when you think stations, King's Cross or London Liverpool Street. Yeah, stations are a whole wide range. And often we get people talk to us and say, well, we could put this into Liverpool Street. Well, you're only going to use it once. It's only one station. But could you apply whatever you're doing across all 133? So do think about that. We have stations without barriers, without ticket gate lines. So do think about those things as well. Don't fall into the trap of thinking every station is like a London station. The 3 stations I've got up there, Liverpool Street, Stratford and Stansted. So again, you've got that airport connection, which might be interesting for your thing you want to try. What's really interesting, I came to this last year, I had the opportunity to come to this last year, and it was great, which is why we wanted to come as well. But you do sit there as a train operating company thinking, these people don't think we innovate. They think we wait a whole year for somebody to come and say, why didn't you buy one of these? That's not true. Okay, we're innovating all the time. So some of the people I spoke to last year were giving me things or showing me things that actually we've done already. So please make yourself aware. Come and talk to us and say, do you have this app already? Do you do this already? Because the answer in some cases will be yes. I disappointed a few people last year, which wasn't my intention. But they said, we've got this app that does this. I said, oh, we've done that already as an industry. Oh, right, okay. The RSSB are in the room. They'll give you a real steer on what's already been tried and tested. So we're making improvements. Ipswich, we now do this free water. You might have seen free water in Liverpool Street. I think we did it first. But giving away free water. So we do innovate all the time. We've built a couple of new stations. Cambridge North, if you're up near Cambridge, is a station we put together with our assets people. We do a lot on ticketing and smart ticketing and taking gate lines out. We had something called Multipass, which was a chip that you put into a ticket sleeve or something. So you could go through Cambridge Station, you could go to London, you could go through Cambridge London Station. You didn't have to use the gate line. It was all done automatically through some sort of chippy thing. Yeah. So what I'm trying to say is, please come and talk to us, but you might find there's stuff that we're doing already which can complement and can help. We've also had a VTO. We tried a VTO. That's an award-winning thing that we did, where there's someone actually there who customers can talk to about when they're buying the ticket, because some customers struggle. We have over 3,000 people in the business, which is good news. And of course, being Greater Anglia, we're part of a Bellio, which means there's 4 train operating companies and a bus company. And if you do really well with us, we're also part of NS, so you could go across Europe. So there's a big opportunity working with GA. You know what the competition's about. Primarily, though, the 2 areas we're looking at, obviously, are customer experience and decarbonisation. So that's going to be key. These were the points that are in the brief. So they're the points that you're aware of, so I'm not going to go through those again. A couple of things just to make you aware of those as far as customers are concerned if you're doing the customer one. And that's that a lot of customers will come to us and say, Victor, I don't know how to get through the gate line. I had one guy say to me the other day, I haven't travelled on a train for 35 years, and he held up his ticket and said, how do I get through? Yeah? So it's interesting that we assume, certainly being in London, that everyone can do everything and they know how to use their gadgets. But please don't assume that with customers who use the railway. Yeah? They don't know it. Ticketless travel's key for us. We have a target, and we want to stop people travelling without tickets. So that's a key measure for us if you're trying to, encourage us to join in, if you like. I spoke to my head of customer experience, and she said, is one app for everything? Is that what we should be marketing with for customers, that there's one app and it does everything for them in the trains business or train industry? That might be a useful thing. Now, there are some things around, so don't think, I've got that, because there have other people who have got it as well. But is there a way we can use one app for all to help our customers? Please make it easy. Trying to buy a train ticket is complicated enough with the different variations, so we've got to make it nice and easy for our customers. Obviously, we have commuters and we have leisure customers. They are a completely different breed. About 75%, I think, of our customers are commuter customers. They know where to stand, they know what to do, they don't want to talk to anybody, just get out of my space, I'm gone. Leisure customers have bags, dogs, kids, and everything else. So there is a definite difference, so please think about that with your proposals and your propositions. Stations are seen as cold and unfriendly. So again, that's something maybe we can do some work on. It's around customer experience. How do we make it more enjoyable for customers? And most of our stations, I've said before, medium or small, so please do bear that in mind. But we are doing a lot already, as a business. So we do have shops. We are looking at what the product offer is on our stations as far as customer experience is concerned. We even have pianos on stations nowadays, choirs on stations. We do a lot with signage and we do a lot with ticket retailing. So although you've got something already that you want to market and you want us to have a look at, that would be absolutely great, but it might be something that bolts onto something we've got already. Does that sort of make some sense? Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask Tom now to take over and talk about carbonisation and some detailed stuff, which will be really interesting.
Thank you, Victor. When he asked me to come and talk to you today, he said, come and share your problems. This wasn't quite what I had in mind, but we'll go with it. Victor said, have you got any problems with carbon? I've got 120,000 tonnes of problems with carbon. I'd like to get rid of some of them, and I'd like your help to do it. I'm not going to talk too much about traction carbon. That's my biggest problem, but we've got new trains coming in which are going to be more efficient. There are opportunities in that, but I wanted to go through some of the issues we have on the non-traction side, which is about 10% of our carbon. So one of our issues is we've got some depots. They're quite big. So Ilford Depot uses 7 gigawatt hours of gas a year to heat 150 to 200 people, which seems very wasteful. As we want to decarbonise overall, we want to take gas out of the mix, and how do we do that and keep our engineers in a position where we can actually maintain our trains comfortably? That's one of your challenges. If you can help us with that, that'd be good. I don't care about heating the air. If you can heat the people, that's fine. There's a bit of a theme. So ticket office colleagues, if you go around all the small stations, we've got lots of different designs of ticket office windows, but in winter, you go in there. So if you go into the ticket office, you'll find them sitting there, 25 degrees in there, and they're shivering. They've got cold hands, they've got cold chests, they're suffering from colds. How can I overcome that and not have them sitting there uncomfortable and still using huge amounts of energy to try and keep them warm? It should be something really simple to resolve. I just haven't managed it yet. So any options on that would be really good to know about. This one is about traction. So this summer it's quite warm, as hopefully you've all realised. And a lot of our air conditioning units on the trains were getting to the point where they were constantly running and ending up overloaded. So is there any way we can reduce the solar gain in order to reduce the air conditioning loads, but without forcing us to spend more energy on heating in winter because we've not got that solar gain anymore? Or vice versa. So if we can do it in winter, so we increase the solar gain, improve the gains in the trains, so we've got bigger windows coming in for the customer experience, is there anything we can do about that to improve the overall efficiency? Our customers, we haven't measured this, but their first and last miles can add, if we looked at the whole journey, will add significantly to the carbon intensity. What can we do to actually minimise the carbon intensity of that? But we've got to be cognizant that actually our parking revenue is quite important to us. It helps support the overall cost of journeys. So how can we reduce the first and last mile carbon without significantly impacting on our parking revenues? So it's a bit of a challenge. And one which it's not directly linked to reducing our day-to-day carbon, but the evening peak, particularly in winter, between 4 and 7 p.m. It's when network rail charges the most for traction and electricity, but it's also when the overall grid demand is very high. So if there's anything we can do to actually minimise that, so minimise our loads for running trains in the evening peak, so we can minimise the amount of capacity needed, particularly spinning capacity in the grid, so to deliver an overall system benefit. Again, that would be a really interesting one for us to look at. And we've got bi-mode trains coming in, so they're going to be diesel-electric hybrids. So one of the options we will be looking at is whether or not we need to operate them on diesel under the overheads, which at the point of use doesn't seem very sensible, but from an overall system efficiency could make sense. And the final one is one from my colleagues at ScotRail. So they're getting more trains coming in, and they don't want to spend lots and lots of money putting in shore supplies to enable cleaners to go on the trains and clean overnight. So they've got a lot of diesel units up there, which we only have a very, very few of. And so they're looking for a mechanism by which they can operate with shore supply, but without having to go through and actually do all the digging and burying to create a full shore supply system when we're looking to phase diesel out by 2040. So that's a challenge from them. And I will hand you back to Victor, because I think that's my problems done for the day. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. I'm glad Tom did that. I don't know much about environment and energy. Okay, 2 quick slides and then we'll hand over. So what can we offer you as an asset owner? So if you're here with an app or something that you want to market, what can GA offer you? And we're probably unique in this regard. So we can offer you all sorts of stations, all sorts of sizes, from a Liverpool Street through to a 2-platform rural station out in the middle of Norfolk, where you won't see any customers at all. We can offer you the whole range. Yeah, absolutely. We can also offer you a fully formed asset management department because, as I said, we've got our stations are leased off Network Rail, which is absolutely great, and a lot of our people actually are ex-Network Rail people. So we've got a full asset management department who are pretty reactive. So we could go in there, say, we need to know this, we need to know that, and they can give you the information straight away. So that's great. So we've got an asset management department. We've obviously got Tom doing our environmental and sustainability, and we've got a full safety department, so we can help with that. If you want to know, well, can we do this, can we do that, would that be safe? We can give you that expertise. We've got engineering depots. We've got 3 engineering depots, so we can help you if you want to go and stick something on a train. We stick things on a train. You have to have permission. You can't just do it because they're leased. However, we have a process, so we can go and talk to the people and get that process going, so we can help you with that. The reason I put restricted is you've seen our lovely new train on the right-hand side there, so our depots are going through some maintenance work, so there might be a restriction as to how we get in, but we can get in. Rolling stock's leased, as I said, but we can add bits and bobs to that. We've got a full procurement process and a full procurement team, so they can help as far as that initial discussion, but also later on, if there is a later on. And obviously we've got a whole, as I said, 1,300 employees, so we can help with customer service questions, we can help with engineering questions, operational questions, timetabling, all those sorts of good stuff. We also have a bank of knowledge. We've got a BSOL, British Standards Online licence, so if you want to know what the standard is for brass welding on a train, we got that for you. I haven't, but we've got access to that, so we can help with all of that knowledge and background stuff if you need it. There's also something in the industry called NRPS, the National Rail Passenger Survey, and CEPM, which is again another passenger survey. So we've got access to that detail too. So if you want to know what do people think, what do customers think, what's the research telling us, what's the data telling us, we can tell you that. We're quite big at Lean Six Sigma. We've gone into quite a few programs of that. So we've got quite a wealth of expertise that if you want, you can come and say, well, how can we do this and can we do that and can I stick a widget on your train? Then we can certainly have a look at it. And as I say, we can help with managing the project. So as far as if it's helpful for you to review it every month with someone, we can do that. And if you want to sit in front of a timetabler, we can do that. So we can sort of support you in your findings in your trip. Last slide is just about obviously opportunities for you. Obviously, it's an opportunity to showcase on different sorts of traction. As I said already, Abellio, we're one of their rail operating companies. There's 3 other rail operating companies and a bus company, and Europe potentially. We're also part of Ideas UK. I don't know if you know Ideas UK, but we're a silver award-winning certification Ideas UK company, and we will happily put that forward if it's a really good idea to Ideas UK, so there'll be a national recognition of that. We've got 2 finalists this year in November going forward. They're innovations that we've done ourselves. Obviously RSSB are here. Welcome to the RSSB here too, but we've got quite good relationships with them, so we can help work with them. And other suppliers, we're doing a project on disruption management, which we've got to be tomorrow with McLaren Applied Technologies, part of their spin-off of their F1 team. So there's an opportunity, maybe you say, well, our bit will fit with their bit, and we can put it on your train, so we can help with that. And then we're quite good at telling people what we're about. We have an innovations conference every year, not dissimilar to this. And we're quite good at telling people in the industry what we're up to. And we have had Green and Black's chocolate were there last year, Waitrose were there, all sorts of people. Yeah, so we'll spread the news. And finally, this is our new train. It's good, isn't it? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Victor. Gareth from the UK.
Good afternoon. I'm Gareth Biggins. I'm Innovation Manager for Arriva's UK Trains division. And likewise, just going to give you a little bit of an introduction into Arriva, what we do, and what we can do to try and support you in your applications for the First of a Kind competition. Just flicking through the slides. Just a second. I'll try and not keep you too long as well, because I think for me the really important part of this event is having some really good time to speak to you out there over lunch and afterwards as well, as part of the networking piece. But who are Arriva? Well, we're one of the largest transport operators within Europe. We operate in 14 countries and employ over 60,000 people. And that kind of adds up to about 2.4 billion journeys every year. So what is one of the things that we can really offer you? Well, we can offer you access to a lot of people, both in terms of our employees and the knowledge that they've got, but also our customers as well, who can give you feedback and knowledge about the products and services that you're testing. We're part of the Deutsche Bahn group as well, so the German National Railway, and Arriva operates all of the services owned by DB outside of Germany. We also operate a range of different types of transport modes. We're not just a railway operator. In the UK, we operate bus, but also non-emergency transport services for the NHS. A wide range of rail services as well. We're not just a long-distance operator or a regional operator, but we cover metro-style railways as well through our London Overground operation on behalf of TfL. In the UK, we've got over 17 years of experience now, so from the very early days of privatisation, and we've been operating approximately 23% of passenger services across the UK network. We've currently got 5 train operating businesses, and something that very few people know about is that we also have a part of the business called Arriva Train Care as well. So that's part of our business that actually undertakes heavy maintenance and refurbishment work of rolling stock, not just for Arriva operated businesses, but for our peers as well within the industry. So the opportunities for you are that we've got over 600 train sets for you to access, over nearly 1,000 employees within the UK, nearly 600 stations, and there's the 5,000 services a day that we operate over 6,600 kilometres. So to just give you a bit of a range of the scale for cross-country as our furthest distance travelled of any of our operators, services are literally from Land's End to John O'Groats. But also then we have our very intense services operated on London Overground within central London. Just down at the bottom there and linked to Grand Central trains, we've got our Alliance Rail Holdings business as well, which is our mechanism for bidding for open access operators as well, so non-franchised rail routes. So what are we looking for in a partner and for opportunities for you to come and talk to us? Well, we want in people who are curious and keen to think beyond today's railway. Today's railway is good, it's under a lot of pressure, but we want to look to the future and actually to think about what could be possible in the future. We want people who are driven towards delivering a great customer experience. The customers are at the heart of everything that we do at Arriva, and that has to come across in whatever projects that we do. We want people who've got unique solutions or physical products that will enhance how our trains operate and how our stations operate. And we're also open to developing collaborative consortia as well. So if you've got a product or service that might not fully meet the criteria of this project, still come to us and speak to us anyway, and we perhaps might be able to integrate that into another project that we're doing, or to work with others of our partners in our supply chain to actually to make that a reality. And what we're looking for in terms of solutions, well, we want solutions which engage and satisfy our customers, but also that have the potential to be scaled across the whole of Arriva, whether that's in our UK Trains division or within our UK bus company, or beyond with our peers in Arriva Netherlands or Arriva Italy, who are very active in the innovation environment like we are. We also want to enhance our employee experience. So the gentleman that was here from the NHS before, we're very keen to talk to people who've got solutions that will enhance our employee well-being. It's particularly prevalent, I think, within the decarbonisation element of this project. Stations are a place sometimes that capture emissions and make them quite horrible places to work for our people and our customers to dwell. We're also looking to reduce our impact in the environment, so progressing towards a zero carbon station is something that we truly aspire to doing, and our trains, I think, are an area where we're doing lots of work already with our partners, whether it's our rolling stock companies or train manufacturers, to develop new solutions that do reduce our carbon impact. But we also need to look beyond the carbon element and to look at those other emissions as well that were discussed earlier. So in terms of our challenges, over the next kind of 5 years, I think the challenge of ultra-low emission zones, particularly within our urban environments, on bits of rail infrastructure that won't be electrified in the near future, is a big challenge for us. Reducing the carbon impact of our stations, not just in terms of the emissions from our trains, but from the emissions of our stations as well, and the products that our customers bring onto those stations, perhaps. We're also very keen to look at solutions that might combine both the two themes of the competition. So decarbonisation of emissions from trains, but at our stations. And from a customer experience perspective, we're looking at solutions that make the transition from throughout the station, whether that's from the station entrance to platform and onto train, much simpler, much easier for every one of our customers. We're looking at improving our ability to retail mobile tickets as well at stations. So not just being able to sell a paper ticket at the station, but can we actually retail a mobile ticket at station? And most of all, we're looking for solutions that actually bring a bit of fun to the railway as well. Travelling along the rail network can be a little bit boring sometimes, and we want to really engage with people and to re-spark that engagement that customers have with the railway that's kind of been lost a little bit over the last few years. What I would say is that if you've had a solution that's gone through First of a Kind 1 as well and you're looking to iterate that, then please do come and speak to us, because it might not be viable for a further submission within First of a Kind 2 as the competition. But if you've got a proven concept, do come and speak to Arriva about potentially a further iteration of that project and to look at how we can help you progress. And that's everything from me. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Gareth. Okay, next speaker up is Vicente Herrera-Leon from Network Rail.
Okay,
Afternoon, everybody. First of all, where's Victor? I want to thank Victor for name-checking Network Rail. Thank you very much. And I look forward to having a coffee with you later and understand how we can collaborate even further. So first of all, apologies from David Rowe. David Rowe is our Head of Strategy for Network Rail under our Safety Technical Engineering Division. He unfortunately can't make it today, so I'm going to try and cover his slides this afternoon. That's me there, so feel free to use my photograph in any shape, form you wish. I'm Head of Digital no, I'm not. I've got a new job. I'm Head of Digital Services at Property, Network Rail Property. So I'll be covering off more on the station side of it, whereas David will cover more on the kind of decarbonisation, but I'll attempt to go through those two themes. And I think people have already touched on it beforehand, that although we're here today to talk about decarbonisation and stations, we want to hear about other ideas that you may have in terms of research and development. And if I go on, in terms of decarbonisation, one of our key kind of objectives for the next 5 years is to reduce our energy consumption by up to 18%, as you can see there. We also, and I think Arriva, was mentioning low zero carbon stations, where that's our objectives in 2050. And I think Phil West, was it from DFT this morning, was talking about no diesel trains at all on the network by 2040 as well. So we'll all kind of have a similar, or if not the same, objective. So it's essential that we work and collaborate with each other in order to achieve these. And in our visions for our stations, you can see up there, is to be safe, secure and sustainable and seamless experiences for our customers in the stations. And one of the things I want people to think about today is think beyond the rail industry. 30% of our station users, and unfortunately we only manage 20 stations, not 134, but they do tend to be the large ones. I get that pun in now. But 30% of people that use our stations are there not to catch a train. So they're doing something else, whether they're experiencing retail, business meetings, meeting, greeting, enjoying the space in the area. So bear that in mind. So it's not all just about rail and catching the train. It's about how we enhance the overall customer experience in our stations. So some of you may be aware of this factor, but we have 50 challenge statements on our research and development site. Now, those 50 challenge statements are not all related to decarbonisation and customer experience, but it gives you an idea of some of the challenges that we're currently facing. And if anybody has an idea outside of decarbonisation and the customer experience, there is a performer on there to raise a new challenge for Network Rail. And we will have a look at it and we will support it if it fits within our strategic objectives. So feel free to go on there and challenge the challenge statements themselves. There's also another form on there that challenges our standards. As you know, we're not proud of the fact that we are notoriously difficult to do business with. We are trying to improve that. And one of the ways we're improving that is asking people to challenge our own standards. So if you have an idea that challenges that standards and improves that standards, we want to hear about it as well. Okay. But you can see some of the ones that are relevant to today's topic, which is decarbonisation and stations on the bottom there. Okay. So greener railways, how do we achieve that? So as I mentioned, we're going to move away from diesels. And again, thinking about beyond the rail industry, some of you may be aware that we have a huge road fleet to manage our infrastructure. Okay, one of the biggest road fleets in the UK. So how do we minimise or decarbonise our road fleets? If you've got any ideas around that, we really want to hear that as well today, as well as using emergency generators across our infrastructure when we do any upgrades or development works. Energy storage, any ideas around that that can help us? Again, we want to hear about that. And also exploring alternative fuels, such as hydrogen, and enabling best use of hybrid bi-mode trains as well. And one thing that we can facilitate within Network Rail is that we have 2 test facilities, one in Tuxford and one in Melton. So you can actually test your innovation and your products and services in a controlled and safe environment, which will be a lot easier to access rather than the live network. Okay, so bear that in mind. There is a form that you can subscribe to and request access to our 2 test site facilities in the Midlands. Okay, and we can help you and facilitate that for you. Okay, looking at stations now. Again, one of the key call-outs we want to shout about is that our stations are really integrated as part of the local community, and they drive those social outcomes and enhance the economy overall in the UK. and that's what we want to do. You see pictures there on the right-hand side there, or my left, is London Bridge. For those of you who have not seen London Bridge, I'd urge you to go and see it and see what we've done there. Bottom right-hand corner is Wokingham in Berkshire. Again, working with our top franchise partners, we've developed that station, and we've actually created 2 new lift accesses to create better accessibility, as well as deliver 2 new road access points into the station. And again, that's improved the town of Wokingham in terms of the commuter and the social aspects across the town. And the bottom left, I think Victor, no, it wasn't Victor, who mentioned King's Cross. You can see King's Cross there, and the redevelopment work we've done there prior to the Olympics in 2012. That's regenerated the whole area across King's Cross. And the interesting point in King's Cross, up to 40% of people that go into the station do not catch a train, okay? And that's nudging towards 45%. That's almost half the people are there not to actually use it for that purpose it was designed for. They're using it for other means. So think about your innovation, think about your solutions. How does that tap into that customer experience in our stations? Okay? And these are kind of our 5 key strategic themes around stations. One is to be safe and secure and sustainable. We're quite proud in Network Rail, as are all the partners who work with us, that we have the best safety record in Europe, and we want to keep it that way. Capacity challenges. I think the last figures published by the RRR, the Office of Rail and Road Regulations, 1.6 billion journeys across the network. That was up by 4%. So those capacity challenges are increasing. Within Network Rail ourselves, almost 50% of those journeys start or end in one of our managed stations. So how do we work with our partners to improve that capacity? And then I think, sorry, where's Arriva? Was it, you mentioned putting customers at the centre of everything you do? Absolutely agree with that. Okay, that's what we're trying to do. If we're not doing it for the customer, in the future, we will simply not do it. Okay, so that absolutely resonates with me. And how do we connect those people in those local communities? And the last 2, as I mentioned before, social and economic successes. Top right-hand corner, again, that's King's Cross. For those of you who've got long memories, like myself, and go back, King's Cross wasn't always known as a nice area. Yeah, okay, it's safe to say. Some people will still argue that, but we've transformed the whole area by simply redeveloping the station along with St Pancras. And I'm sure it's a much more desirable area than it was 10, 15 years ago. And again, the image below it is our Epsom station. And again, working with the train operating companies, we're expanding Epsom station to include up to 100 apartments and a 64-bedroom hotel for the racetrack. That's local, that's important for the community. And that's one of the other key objectives that the government has asked us to do. We've been tasked of building up to 12,000 new homes as part of the UK housing strategy by releasing Network Rail land and assets to facilitate that house build. And that's something we're keen to explore. And that's our development colleagues within property are looking to do that. But the underlying comment there is that we cannot do this alone. We work best within Network Rail when we work in partnership with our colleagues and our strategic partners. And that leads us to, some of you may be aware, that we are currently running what we call an Open for Business programme. So if you go onto our website, it will tell you how best to work with us, because we acknowledge and accept that we're not easy to do business with, and we're looking to address those challenges. So we are open for business. If you've got any other ideas outside of a greener railway or improving the stations, come and talk to us. I think you've got the email address there, which David's accountable for. Please let us know, and we can help steer you in the right direction and signpost you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vince. Chandra, I'd like to invite you to the platform, please.
Hi. Right, afternoon, everybody. I didn't quite manage to get the slides to work at York, so I'm hoping it will be fine this time. So I'm just on the green button. Okay, right. Okay, so my name's Chandra Morbey, and I'm the Innovation and Development Manager at Porterbrook, and I work in a job share with Helen Simpson, who some of you will know. And I'm here with not on my own, but with my colleague Steve McCall, who's over there, if you give him a wave. So if you want to speak to either of us afterwards, we'd be more than happy to speak to you. So Porterbrook is an asset owner for rolling stock, and we have almost a third of the rolling stock in this country. And so it's a big opportunity for people with innovations to come and talk to us. And we are heavily investing in large-scale innovations at the moment, and you may have heard about some of those in the press. But I'm not here to talk about that. I'm here to talk about how your innovation might be something that we could support through a project that we're already doing. So let me just make a start. So we are launching what we're calling our Innovation Hub, and this is really to encourage and to challenge the supply chain to come up with innovations that will help to make rolling stock better. So what we're going to do is use one of our off-lease units, a 319, which if people here, railway people will know, is a EMU. It's a 4-car train, and it's even unit 319454, if anyone's a train spotter. And it's currently at Long Marston, which is near Stratford-on-Avon, in an area where units are stored. And so we're offering that to people to come along and to fit their innovation onto our train. So the unit has not got PRM. If people don't know what that is, that means it's not had the modifications to enable accessibility. And so it's kind of a blank canvas. So if there are people who've got a new type of toilet, new type of seats, all of those kind of things, that's something that we would be interested in talking about. And the aim of this is to showcase this at Rail Live, which is an exhibition that's in June, in June next year. And that has got lots of marketing opportunities. But it's not just about Rail Live, where it will be a static display, but with auxiliary power. After the show, we're expecting that vehicle, that unit, to be around for 6 months. So there are more opportunities for more work to be done, or it's an opportunity for suppliers to be able to bring customers on, bring passenger groups on, and so on, and to get more feedback about their innovation. So really, in summary, it's a chance for you to take a step towards getting your innovation onto the railway and to bring your innovation to life. So, when we heard about the First of a Kind 2 competition, we obviously saw that this might be something of interest to people who are either bidding into this or who have innovations that they want to showcase. So this timeline just shows kind of how the timeline we're working to might interface with the First of a Kind timeline. So obviously October 2018 is where we are now. We would be interested in hearing from suppliers who would like to fit equipment onto our train in October, November, December, which is ahead of the announcements, I realise, for the First of a Kind competition. But I think you do hear on the 11th of January, don't you, if you're successful. But we're not necessarily looking only to work with people that are going to win this funding. If you've got an innovation that's either within the scope or outside the scope, whether you win the funding or don't win the funding, we are still keen to progress and maybe work with you on your innovation. So the next steps on the Innovation Hub are from January to April. We would talk to suppliers about the technical details, about how they're going to get their innovation up and running, method statements and so on, looking to fit the equipment April to May, and then have the Rail Live exhibition is in the middle of June. So how would you get in touch with us? What sort of questions would we ask you? So I've put out some forms on everybody's chair. Hopefully you've got one of those, or if you haven't, do catch me later. Where we're trying to make this just very simple. Because the unit isn't going to be running, it's going to be static, and it's obviously not out on the railway. This is really a stepping stone for you to get closer to getting your train going. So we're not looking for full approvals or even depending what it is, partial approvals. We're just looking to make sure that we understand what your innovation is, what the scope of it is, what space it would need, what power it would need. And we're looking to get a good range of proposals and good range of ideas fitted onto the Innovation Hub so that we can really showcase what different suppliers have got and Obviously, some of the ideas I'm sure will be excellent. We'll be able to talk to our train operating colleagues and see whether the next step might be to get this out onto the railway, or obviously depending on what it was, we might be interested in investing in it ourselves if it was more of a asset enhancement. So what we are offering, just to be clear, is we're offering this unit. We will review technical information coming in. I think one of the other speakers says about the importance of having people that are experienced in rail looking at technical information and feeding back to you, particularly if you're new to the rail industry. We've got a management of change process, as do all railway companies, and we would be looking to have a cut-down version of that to get things onto the Innovation Hub. But it would enable you to see what the full management of change process is to get something fitted as a modification onto the running railway. We'll have a project manager and on-site support if you come to fit your equipment. Obviously, as all our branding people love, we will have branding and marketing opportunities. We'll provide the power, and then the unit will really be there to also enable you to invite your customers or potential customers and to get feedback about your innovation, which I know is one of the issues that this competition is looking to emphasise. So there are some commercial issues to consider, but we're trying not to make this too onerous. We would want to make sure that there was a minimum duration that your innovation was fitted onto the train, because we're obviously trying to showcase it, and we would be looking to get people to look at the whole train after Rail Live as well. We would need some insurance of the equipment. We need to talk about how the costs of installing your equipment would be covered, and we'd be expecting suppliers to cover that, but I guess that might be something you might put in your competition entry. We'd need to make sure people that fitted it are competent. This is the engineer in me speaking now. Method statements and so on. And then we'd want to understand what your plans are next, because, as I say, this is a stepping stone to doing something towards getting your innovation up and running. So, on these forms that I've given you, it's very simple, just some simple questions. If you hopefully those things would be easy for you to answer and to determine whether you thought this would be a good thing to work with us on. We've got an email at the bottom, which is think@porterbrook.co.uk. So if you email that, we will email you this form so you can fill it in electronically. We've also got a cost-benefit spreadsheet that we use when we evaluate modifications, and that might be a useful way for you to look at your innovation and the commercial viability. You don't need to do that to be on the innovation train, but that is going to be the end point at some point somebody will say, what's the cost benefit of fitting your innovation? So that might be a way to start you thinking about those things. And I think that's about it. So if you are interested and you have an innovation, then do come and speak to either myself or to Stephen. We're here all afternoon, and we'd be delighted to talk to you about whether there's an opportunity to work together.
Thank you very much indeed, Chandra. So you've got 4 companies there, asset owners, offering a wide range of facilities that will take your innovations and technologies. We have, move on to the next one, please, slide. Oh, it's me, sorry. We now have HS2, Ian Roach. Is Ian here? Oh, Rhianne, you're doing it, okay.
I did the slide, so I can do it if you want.
Ah.
So I'm from HS2, so
Oh,
I'm
right.
randomly putting my hand up.
Excellent. Good. So Ian isn't here.
So I'm not Ian.
It's
only one slide,
it's only one
so I
slide,
shouldn't need to, because I just put it together quickly.
This is Joanna Randel.
And I'm head of station operations for HS2. So
I'm actually part of the team that is currently designing the stations, and also I will be responsible for operating the stations when the phase 1 opens in 2026. So I'm still 7 years away. So we are still designing our services and designing the stations. Some of you may have seen in the press this week that we've released the designs for the 2 Birmingham stations, Curzon Street and Interchange, which is near to the airport in Birmingham. And we are, in sense of what HS2 is doing, we're trying to challenge the whole customer experience at stations. So we don't have anything yet, but we are looking to partner with train operators or Network Rail or TfL to meet some of the challenges that we have. So one thing that we're looking at is autonomous vehicles, and this isn't autonomous vehicles in the sense of the last mile, although we are looking at that and we have some partners that we're working on currently at the moment. This is how we can use autonomous vehicles within the station to improve the customer experience, and this is specifically to use them to move passengers around the station, because we have mobility issues, we have large stations. Some of these stations are actually part of that last mile, they're so big. We have 400-metre platforms, we have different size platforms, different size rolling stock. How do we get people from the station entrance to the platform quickly, efficiently, without using lots of staff? Is autonomous vehicles the answer? Will people feel safe using them? A lot of airports are looking at autonomous vehicles to put people around. I don't know whether anyone in the room is doing this, but we need to be able to transport people, get them into a lift and get them down to the platform safely. So we're looking at how we can do that within the field autonomy. But also in the sense of how do we get autonomous vehicles to deliver things to retailers during the operational day. So is there something with machine learning in there that gets to know the best time to deliver something within the station to retailers, to service some of those people that, the 50% of people that are not actually using a station to catch a train, it's because they're going there to have a business meeting, because it's actually their supermarket is there because it's part of their local community. So it's thinking about all of those sorts of things. The other thing that we're looking at is HS2 stations will definitely not have ticket offices. So we are looking at being as digital as possible. So what does that mean in terms of where the station security is? What does that mean in terms of barriers? How do we manage flows through the station? How do we get people through our stations efficiently? We've done lots of work on gate lines already. So anybody that we partner with in this field, we have lots of research in users in terms of the concepts that we've already worked on, and we can work with the supply chain to do that. And also sort of like, how do we dynamically sign people around stations? I can't remember who mentioned it earlier about when you leave York, there's no sign to way out. Do we actually need signage in the future? Can we make these beautiful clear spaces and we dynamically sign people, push notifications? There's all sorts of ways that we can do it in the future. And how does that link up to the whole information? Because the way we envisage our station of the future is that the whole thing will be smart, it will dynamic, it will talk to you, it will be your friend, and ultimately that is how we want to improve the customer experience, is actually allowing the building and the service to speak to our customers. That's it.
Thank you, Joanna. I'd now like Sacha Visram to come up and talk to you from Rail Delivery Group. Thank you, Sacha.
There you go. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sacha Visram. I'm from the Rail Delivery Group, or RDG for short. And for people that don't know the Rail Delivery Group, we effectively look after all the TOCs. But we have relationships with Network Rail and a number of other key stakeholders within the industry. We're probably not a very well-known brand to people who are not within the industry. So for those of you who are not familiar with the industry, please come and talk to us. I won't go through all of those in great detail, but suffice to say, every single one of those, Innovate UK, RSSB, the TOCs, DFT, UCRIM, which is academia, Network Rail, and a lot of people come to us directly with great visions of innovation and so forth. So we're really keen to work across a matrix of people. The key thing I'd like you to take away from this slide really is collaboration. We're really keen to work with many people as possible. And I kind of mirror what a lot of my colleagues said previously. Whether you're within the TOC or whether in Network Rail, we could do that at probably a slightly grander level across the industry with all different TOCs and with a number of different stakeholders. So in terms of the points of interest for this competition, and in no particular order, these are the kind of 4 key areas that we're really interested in talking to people about collaborating within some form of applications. So accessibility, that's a big issue, as we've heard from a number of people already. But hidden disabilities, we're really keen about how can we help people through the stations who have maybe learning difficulties or have sight issues. Could we use lighting? There's all sorts of different forms of ways of engaging with people, and we're really keen to hear from people who can help us take this forward. Older citizens as well. Not everybody is as able as everybody else. So what can we do? How can we think about those people? Wayfinding, using the latest forms of technology and allowing people to navigate through the station, whether that's through a mobile or whether that's through an earpiece, whatever it may be. We're really keen to hear about things like that. Decarbonisation. Obviously, we've been set a challenge by the Minister. There's not one single solution. But don't just think about decarbonisation in terms of taking diesels off of trains. It could be, how could we improve the customer experience and develop some apps, for example, that can show people's carbon footprint when they decide to take a journey. If they take this journey, it's going to be Y. If they take this journey, it's going to be X. How can we help deliver and improve on that customer experience, for example? Another really big issue for the industry, as I'm sure everybody was aware of, the timetable issues that happened in May. So how can we as an industry recover better from disruption? So it's not just about how do we get the crew and the stock together at the right place at the right time, but how can we ensure that we're engaging with the customer and keeping them informed at the right time, in the right manner through a personalised experience? And how can we make sure that that one line of truth hangs true right the way across that value chain? And that's really important to us. Gate lines and ticketing, again, as we look to the future, how can we do away with paper tickets? How can we take away gate lines? What are the opportunities? What are the efficiencies that we can make and we can save? And we can work with you and across a number of different TOCs. Some TOCs have innovation teams, some TOCs don't have innovation teams, and we can bring you into either a big project or a small project, whatever it may be. We're really keen on collaboration, as I say. Some other things that we're interested in is integrated voice ticketing machines. As we heard from our colleagues at HS2, they want to do away with kiosks and selling tickets within stations. So how can we come up with some solutions in and around that space? Car parking is another big issue. How can we ensure that we're utilising the car parks in the most effective way? How can we ensure that people know that there's spaces for them before they even sat out during the day? All that information is there, we're just not utilising it. So we're really keen to hear from people that can help us pull some of these things together. That's it, just 2 slides, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Sacha. I'd now like to call on Giulia Lorenzini from RSSB. Thank you, Giulia.
Thank you, Ian. Those are not my slides. Oops. They're not my slides. Shall I just get started meanwhile? So I work... Say it again? Yeah, that's all right. So I work within the R&D department at RSSB, which I'd like to stress is funded by a grant we received from the DFT. Amongst the various things, I look after our academic and some of our industry partnerships, and I also look after our portfolio of research competitions. So let me just try and use one of these slides. No. Oh, yeah, sorry. Okay, I'll use this one just as a background. So I was trying to represent in a pictorial view all the funding opportunities that are currently available in the space of rail decarbonisation. So you, of course, are aware about the first-of-a-kind competition, and some of you, especially the academics in the room, might be aware of the EPSSC Decarbonising Transport Networks Plus that has recently closed. The RSSB with the Innovate UK KTN colleagues have decided to occupy the space in the middle for all of you whose idea won't fit in any of those spots, and give you the opportunity to pretty much put forward proposals for these two competitions. So we've got $1+ million available through the KTP initiative, which is jointly funded by RSSB and KTN Innovate UK. Those of you that are not aware how a knowledge transfer partnership work, you can talk to Ian or myself later. And the second initiative that I would like to draw your attention to is the RSSB funded call on intelligent power solutions to decarbonise rail. For this one, we're looking particularly at feasibility studies and also at demonstrator projects. So anything between TRL level 4 and 7, and TRL level 7 and 8, possibly for the KTPs. In terms of scope, both competitions will focus on 3 main challenges. The first one is, if we take a sort of traction perspective, high speed, and what are the options where electrification is not available? What are the options for high-speed trains? And also within that challenge, also looking at hotel loads. Clearly, when we talk about high speed, normally we're talking about long journeys, so the consumption of energies by plugging in our phones or computers or else air conditioning, like some of the operators were saying, might be quite high. So what can we do to reduce the energy usage in that sense? The second challenge of our competition will look at freight. Clearly, they've got very similar, but at the same time different challenges to passenger trains. So we're trying and look how we can contribute to reducing consumption for the freight community. And the third one is around infrastructure. So everything around energy usage, energy storage, and energy distribution along the networks, from stations to trying to sort of storage batteries along the lines. The third thing that I wanted to mention is that we are going to host a brokerage event, an information day, to talk in more detail about these two competitions with our colleagues from Innovate UK on the 30th of October at the University of Warwick. That event is open to anyone, and you're more than welcome to ask me about that later. I've got some flyers which I can circulate. My contacts were on the slides. I hope that the ones that will be circulated will have them as well. And the only thing I wanted to say is that if you have any questions or would like to bounce back some ideas, you can talk to me or any of my RSSB colleagues in the room. Thank you.
Yes, my apologies for that, Julie. We now move into the session